Hello everyone, this is Kat and welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfics. This will be the continuation of Yuuei Survival Guide. This will be Part 38, Chapter 38. The rest of the week leading up to the start of their internships isn't all that exciting. Core classes are the same as usual, and heroics training in the afternoon is essentially just Shota preparing them for their internships as well. There's a lot of paperwork that they need to fill out, since these internships could very well be dangerous. That afternoon, Shota had been going over some of the paperwork and general guidelines that Yuuei enforces when it comes to the internships. It was mostly expectations that Shota and the school has for them when out in the workplace. It's reasonable, considering everything they do will fall back onto not just the school, but the agencies that they're interning at as well. It was basically a be good and be respectful kind of lecture, and they all know that they won't like what punishments come their way if Shota has to hear that they were disrespectful or got into trouble. Izuku made sure to get his paperwork done as soon as he could, handing it to Shota for approval before actually needing to bring it to the agency with him tomorrow. He'd gotten Hisashi to bring him into the agency to hand in the majority of his paperwork, so now all he needed was that leave pass. It's the last piece of paperwork that they all need, a signature from Shota that signs off on them being at internships during the school hours at Yuei's approval for each. And it's just about the end of class when the man finally passes the signed papers out, directing everyone to make sure their representative from whichever agency they're interning at receives it. Izuku looks down at his unsigned paper, worrying his bottom lip between his teeth. The bell rings and his classmates are quick to pack up, everyone excited for the following day. Izuku listens half-heartedly to the excited chatter as his friends and his classmates talk about their internships as they pack up their belongings and file towards the door. Izuku stares down at his unsigned paper. Earth to Izuku. Izuku startles at Hitoshi's teasing tone. You with me, Space Cadet? What? Izuku blinks, folding the paper, closed on instinct. Class is over, Hitoshi points out. You planning on spending the night in here, or? Izuku glances at the clock, opening his mouth as he tries to formulate a reply. Midoriya. He snaps his jaw shut, glancing up at his guardian with his wide eyes. A quick glance around the room shows Kota and Todoroki still packing up their belongings, which explains why his guardian had addressed him by his family name instead of his given name. Or maybe it's the classroom setting. Stay behind for a moment. I need to talk to you about something. All right, Sensei. Izuku bows his head, looking over at his classmates, but neither of them seem to really care that he's being asked to stay behind. Todoroki arches a curious eyebrow as he slips his paperwork into his bag, and Kota just glances over quickly before tugging on his backpack and leaving with a sympathetic wave thrown in Izuku's direction. He's glad that Shota hadn't called him like this as everyone else was leaving, and he suspects that was the man's intention. They're a curious bunch, and even if they're a group of mature heroes in training, they're still teenagers, and this is a school. Todoroki pauses in the doorway, and Izuku realizes with a start that he's waiting for Izuku and Hitoshi. Hitoshi had stayed behind Izuku, leaning his hip against the backrest of Izuku's chair, and Hitoshi frowns at their teacher, eyeing him suspiciously. The pro waves them off, shooting his nephew a bored look while managing a disinterested look at Todoroki. It's nothing bad, the man huffs, waving the two lingering boys off. And it's nothing for either of you two to be concerned about. Now, off you go. You'll see him at the dorms this evening. Back to the dorms. I don't want to see any of you hovering. If you were involved, I would have requested you to stay. Shoo. Yes, Sensei. Todoroki bows his head, glancing at Izuku before looking at Hitoshi like he's waiting for the other boy to follow him. Todoroki and Hitoshi had gotten along well after those first couple of awkward lunches together. Izuku wouldn't exactly call them friends just yet, but they are on the road to it. He knows from experience with both of them that neither Hitoshi nor Todoroki are quick to friendship. It takes time. They're both stubborn and antisocial, so neither is particularly good at reaching out, but they also don't mind hanging out together. Izuku's just glad that the two of them are getting along. Both need more friends, and he's glad that they're working toward it. See you back at the dorms, then. Hitoshi cocks his head at Izuku, glancing back at his uncle before refocusing on the green-haired teen. Yeah, Izuku nods. Definitely. Hitoshi nods back, finally slinging his backpack over his shoulder as he strolls toward the door. The purple-haired teen follows Todoroki out, and Izuku waves as Hitoshi pulls the door closed behind him. Only when the door is firmly shut does Izuku turn back to his guardian. The man is distracted, typing away on his computer. Izuku's surprised that Shota's asking to see him now. He usually doesn't talk to Izuku in the class, much prefers to just track him down in the dorms or catch him when he joins them in the apartment for whatever reason. A quick glance thrown back at the ghost stood behind him tells him that Oboro has also no idea what's going on. Izuku isn't sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but he knows that Oboro spends more time with him now than he does with the Guardians for obvious ghost-seeing reasons. Izuku knows that Shota isn't one to keep a student back after dismissal, because right now Izuku suspects that he's a student and not a foster son, unless he deems it necessary. So this is probably important, but, well, that's worrying. He wonders if it has anything to do with the papers still folded on his desk. Don't look so worried, Shota huffs in amusement, giving Izuku a sideways once-over before focusing back on his computer. Just like I told your friends, it's nothing bad. I think that you already know why you're here, so believe me when I say that you're not in trouble. I just wanted to talk. Now, come up here so we can have an actual conversation. Have a seat somewhere while I finish off this email, and then we'll talk. Izuku nods, grabs his belongings, and he stands up. He holds the folded-up paper in his hands, frowning down at it as he inches closer to the front of the room. Shota refocused on his computer, so Izuku trails along to the row of desks, pulling himself up on one that's closest to the teacher's, which just so happens to be Hakekuri's. He watches his guardian type for a second, before casually glancing sideways where he spots Oboro sitting crisscross along the entirety of Shoji's desktop. Wonder what's got him so worried, Oboro comments lightly, scanning Shota with a frown. Think it's got something to do with that. Oboro gestures to the paper in Izuku's hands, and Izuku tightens his hold on it. He knows Oboro had been reading over his shoulder, and he knows the ghost knows that the paper's unsigned. It's hard to hide something from an entity that's constantly with you, not that he needs to hide anything from Oboro. Izuku cocks his head in silent question before looking at his guardian and trying to scan the man and see what Oboro sees. He doesn't really spot anything that could be worrying. Shota just looks focused on him, so he looks back at Oboro, and he awaits the ghost's train of thought. He's distracted, Oboro offers, finally glancing at Izuku. That's not his usual frown, more tension. He's thinking. Plus, it never takes him this long to type out an email. He's efficient, even in emails. Izuku turns the word over in his head, worrying his bottom lip between his teeth as he thinks. Shota had said he wasn't in trouble, but was he? Had he done something wrong? Had All Might said something? Had Sir Night-Eye said something to All Might, and then All Might said something to Shota? Had Sir Night-Eye actually rejected him? Was he being expelled? No, probably not. Sir Night-Eye hasn't even talked to All Might in years, and even if he had reported that Izuku was an awful successor, All Might would have come to him and not Shota, right? Problem child. Izuku startles, blinking wide eyes up at his guardian. You okay? Shota asks calmly, one eyebrow arched up and a silent question as he takes Izuku in. He's moved from behind the desk and is now leaning on the edge of it, right in front of Izuku. He's half sitting and half leaning, arm laced over his chest as he angles his head in a studying manner. He looks a bit worried. I told you that you weren't in trouble. But I could be. I mean, I got held back after classes, right? Izuku tells him in lieu of actually answering if he was okay or not. That always means you're in trouble. Plus, you never do this. Why would you keep me back after classes when you could have talked to me at the dorms or in the apartment or even texted me? Calm down a bit, Shota directs from his place. Take a breath. Izuku, you're not in trouble. I promise you, this is just a talk, a check-in. It's a school matter, not a personal matter, hence us talking in a classroom setting instead of a personal one. I just need to talk to you as a teacher and as a student. Okay, Izuku breathes out, trying to calm his hammering heart. He feels silly for working himself into such a panic. Of course, Sir Night-Eye didn't talk to All Might, and All Might didn't tell Shota. It's a secret. Sorry. No need for that. Shota shakes his head, flapping a dismissive hand. You ready to talk now, or would you like to have a minute? I'm okay. Izuku nods quickly. What did you want to talk about, then? Shota studies him, takes him in entirely before blowing out a sigh through his nose and shifting himself so he's more perched on the edge of the desk. I never got a chance to talk to you after your internship interview. How did it go? Izuku pauses, glancing sideways at Oboro, who looks just as confused. Why? As far as he knows, Shota hadn't really been asking them about their interviews. Back when they'd first started looking into agencies they could turn at and preparing to apply and actually doing the interviews, Shota had said that he wasn't going to hover. A lot of the class had joked about how their teacher probably just wanted to take more naps, but Izuku suspected this was more of a ruse for the man to see how they managed on their own without making it obvious that's what he was doing. They had to find their own agency to apply to, had to actually apply to the internship program and do it in a professional way that would get them an actual interview. They had to be ready for said interview, act, speak, and be professional and mature, enough so that heroes and agencies were willing to take the gamble on them. This wasn't like the work studies where heroes and agencies reached out to them, and there was a list of pre-approved places for them to go. This was their futures, in their hands entirely, and Shota made a point of handing over control. All that said, though, Izuku thinks this is the most involved that Shota had been with the class. He's watching and studying and probably even grading how they're handling things on their own. This, applying to agencies and being mature heroes in training, is what they'll be doing after they graduate. This is real-life experience in their profession, and Shota's allowing them to learn it on their own, to experience it, in a safe environment where they can still do damage control and help them if they need it. But that doesn't explain why Shota is curious now. Izuku realizes with a start that he'd been quiet, far too quiet, gaze lifting to where Shota is so obviously studying him. The man hadn't replied, so Izuku assumes that he doesn't think it's worth answering. He opens his mouth, wants to respond, but shuts his mouth with a click of his teeth as he tries to formulate a response. He opens his mouth again, finally managing to come up with an answer. It was fine. Why? Fine, his guardian repeats softly, mouth curling into a frown as he does so. Okay, tell me about it. What sort of questions did Sir Night-Eye ask you? How was the interview? Izuku's eyes dart toward Oboro. Why are you asking? I'm your teacher, Shota deadpans. I'm allowed to ask. You didn't ask anyone else. I didn't need to ask anyone else, Shota counters patiently. I'm asking you, though. Why? Izuku frowns. Why are you asking me and not anyone else? Shota studies him for a long second before sighing. Togata came to look for you this afternoon. Over lunch period, he said he couldn't find you in the cafeteria at all, and he thought he'd try looking in the classroom. What? Izuku frowns. Togata had come looking for him. Why? He hadn't even talked to Togata since that morning that he'd met Sir Night-Eye, when Izuku had bailed on taking the train home together. I was having lunch with Itoshi outside. Why was Togata-senpai looking for me? Was it important? Is it something to do with the internship? Should I go see Togata-senpai? He was worried about you. Wanted to check in with you and see how you were after your meeting with Sir Night-Eye, Shota says slowly. And when he didn't find you, he came to me. Why was he worried about me? Izuku cocks his head. You tell me, Shota frowns. Why is he worried about you? Surely you can see why I'd be pulling you aside for this. Not only did he text me after your interview, telling me that you left when you were supposed to catch the train back with him, but he comes looking for you today as well, wondering how you're doing after that interview, after meeting Sir. Izuku blinks owlishly as everything seems to click into place. You didn't sign my papers, Izuku accuses softly, fingers tightening around the paper he's still clutching. I'm supposed to bring these with me tomorrow. You said they were important, but you didn't sign off on them. I didn't. Shota doesn't beat around the bush. I wanted to talk to you before I signed anything. I don't understand, Izuku whispers, unfolding the paper and staring at the blank line. Why is it such a big deal? The interview wasn't great, but I was still approved. Look, kiddo, the man says tiredly, endlessly patient. You know I'm supposed to be protecting you students. That's part of my job as your teacher and all your current guardians as well. I'm having doubts about sending you to Night-Eye's agency. You've been different since that interview, and even if I could ignore that, I can't ignore an upperclassman who's been interning at this specific agency for years, coming to me worried about you. Doubts? Izuku frowns. It really wasn't that bad. This is the first big step you students are taking. Shota angles his head in Izuku's direction, eyeing him. And it needs to be in the right direction, a positive direction. You're all learning. You need a mentor who will help you learn, who will teach you. I need you to all be in a place where I'm certain that you'll be treated fairly, and I don't get the feeling that you will be at Night-Eye's agency. There's no question that Sir Night-Eye isn't an amazing hero, but I'm not so sure that it's the right place for you to be. I know I said that you'd be doing this on your own, and I'm sorry I need to cut in, but I'm not going to sign off on sending you somewhere that I don't know you'd be happy, where I know that you aren't going to get what you need. Togata's worry is serious. As the upperclassman who was with you, who I've taught for 3 years now, I trust his word and his judgment. And even your reaction today, your hesitance, is worrying. Something happened at that interview. I can read between the lines, problem child, even if I don't have a discernible answer. You weren't okay after that interview, and I have different sources telling me the exact same thing. Even Hisashi thought you looked worn after your interview. That's concerning. I've been a teacher and a pro long enough to know when to trust my gut. Something here isn't sitting right. Izuku looks away sharply, frowning at his lap. It wasn't that bad. But it was bad. His guardian cuts to the chase. The man leans back faintly, glaring up at the ceiling for a moment before dropping his gaze back to Izuku. And that's where the problem lies here, kiddo. It shouldn't be not that bad. Not when we're talking about an internship at a hero agency that's supposed to be teaching and training you. It should be good. You should be excited. Your first step into the world of heroics. That's exciting. Izuku opens his mouth to respond, but his guardian draws in a breath and continues stiffly before Izuku can even formulate a response. I've been teaching heroics for many years now, and I can see the difference between excited and dreading. Care to take a guess of where I've placed you? I am excited, Izuku whispers, staring hard at his hands. Honestly, I'm excited to use my provisional license and help people. I want to learn, and I'm excited to work with Togeda-senpai and Bubble Girl, and they seem so nice, too. I can learn a lot from them. I think patrol with Senpai will be beneficial once I learn the area better, and there are a lot of other great heroes in the agency, too, who I'm sure will help me. That's all great, Izuku. Shota cuts him off softly, hesitating before clearing his throat. But notice how you didn't once mention working with Sir Night-Eye? Izuku snaps his mouth shut, wincing when he realizes the man's right. He should be excited to work with the man who started an agency, the biggest name in the place, All Might's one and only ex-sidekick. It's the logical thing, wanting to learn from the best within the agency walls, but Izuku can't bring himself to be excited about it. He's scared to be compared to Togeda constantly. He's scared to be compared to All Might. He's scared of everything that Sir Night-Eye said, and the doubts that he'd managed to nestle so very easily into the back of Izuku's mind. He's scared that Sir Night-Eye will somehow find a way to get further into his head, to make him doubt himself more. He's scared to work with someone who knows about One for All, someone who's known longer than Izuku has, someone who knows what the quirk is capable of when in the right hands. He's scared of not living up to unobtainable expectations and proving the pro right. He's afraid that Sir Night-Eye will see even more flaws than he's already pointed out, and that he'll be seeing where someone else could do better, be better. He's already decided Izuku isn't worthy. The thought of having that shoved down his throat every day when he just wants to learn is nauseating. Izuku isn't sure that he can handle that. Shota sighs, rubbing his eyes before focusing entirely on Izuku, undivided attention that almost makes Izuku want to squirm. I know that you generally tend to be nervous and anxious. I know that. I've seen it since I met you, but this is different. Something was said or done, and you were scared. That doesn't sit right with me, not as your guardian, and certainly not as your teacher about to sign off on handing you over to a place that you're scared to be. Izuku bites his tongue, unable to even meet Shota's gaze. He's right, but Izuku doesn't want to admit it. I want to intern at Night-Eye's agency, Izuku tells his teacher instead. I think I can learn a lot. I want to patrol with Togeda-senpai. I know Sir Night-Eye doesn't... I don't think he's fond of me, but I know I can learn from him, too. What do you mean he's not fond of you? Izuku winces, lifting a shoulder in a shrug. Izuku, Shota calls, voice bordering on stern, yet still soft and prompting. What happened during that interview? You've got to understand that saying that your new mentor isn't fond of you is a cause for worry. If he's acting in any way in which you get an impression that he doesn't like you, which is unacceptable, by the way, then something needs to be done. If we don't do anything now, it'll just open doors to discrimination and mistreatment down the road. That's not okay. It was nothing. Don't tell me it was nothing. Shota sighs, and he sounds so tired. He readjusts himself so that his palms are pressing against the desktop on either side of him. We both know it's not true. I know something went down at that interview, kid. I can't ignore that fact, that the other student that was with you is worried about you enough to seek you out. I can't even ignore the fact that you left your interview for some reason, when you'd planned to stay there all afternoon. I can't just ignore this, Izuku, not when it comes to your safety. I just want to help. You should just tell him, Izuku. Izuku prides himself in the fact that he doesn't turn and look at Oboro despite the ghost's voice startling him. He drags in a slow breath, dragging his knees up to his chest, so the heel of his shoes digs into the edge of Hagakori's desk. He wraps his arms around his knees, setting his chin on the gap between his knees. He draws in another breath, staring down at his now hanging toes. It just seemed a little unfair. Unfair? Shota questioned softly, shifting once again so he's now sitting fully on his own desk. Explain it to me, kiddo. I want to be on your side. Well, Izuku swallows, eyes flicking up to his guardian before returning to his shoes. I was prepared for a lot. I mean, I think we all were. Hard questions, why I wanted to be a hero, why I would fit in at the agency, all that stuff. But he didn't ask any of those questions. Shota guesses lightly. Izuku quirks a small smile as he shakes his head. I had to make him laugh. You had to make him laugh? Izuku hears incredulity in the man's tone. That's odd. Izuku nods, turning his head so his cheek is now resting on his knee. The angle works in his favor, too, as he can now see the ghost. Oboro is frowning, hands tucked in the gap between his crossed legs. It doesn't take more than a second for Oberon's gaze to snap to Izuku, offering a tiny, encouraging smile. It's weird as hell, is what Shota means. What happened then? Shota cocks his head to the side. Did you make him laugh? Was that the whole interview? I didn't, Izuku whispers, picking at a thread on his shoelace. Sir Night-Eye's a huge All Might fan. Sounds like someone else I know. Shota offers dryly, but with a playful smile, and Izuku appreciates the attempt at lightening the mood. Bigger. Izuku looks back at his guardian. If you thought I had a lot of All Might merch, you should see Sir's office. It was amazing. He had such cool merch, like limited edition stuff I only ever saw online. I mean, the resale value of a lot of his merch is like well over 100,000 yen. If I was a couple years younger, I would have been drooling. His guardian lets out an amused hum, waiting for Izuku to continue. Izuku hesitates now, looking away again. I thought I could make an All Might joke, sorta. He wanted me to make him laugh, and I saw the merch, so I thought maybe that he'd think an impression was funny. But he didn't. Shota reads easily between the lines. He did not. Izuku swallows. I thought I failed then. I think I did fail, technically. I offended him, like I thought he was going to kick me out. I thought it was funny, but, he didn't. It wasn't offensive at all, I swear. I mean, I'd never do anything to belittle or mock All Might. I think he's amazing. I believe you. Shota hushes. I know you wouldn't, and I'm sure it wasn't offensive, and Yagi's got thick skin either way. You can't know everyone's sense of humor, hence make me laugh as a test is being ridiculous. I was unaware that's how Sir Night-Eye does his interviews. Togata never said anything. Togata-senpai is funny, Izuku offers, and he's the one that Sir Night-Eye truly believes should inherit One for All. Izuku doesn't mention it. He drums a finger against his knee, biting his bottom lip. Shota is thoughtfully quiet for a second as Izuku stares at the ghost. I thought it was funny, too. Obero bows his head. You really emulated All Might. Sir Night-Eye's just a stuck-up fanboy with his head shoved so far up All Might's ass that he can't handle a little joke. Izuku snorts a laugh, covering up with a cough. If you didn't make him laugh, Shota says slowly, like he's trying to understand. How did you get the internship? You have the signed paperwork, so I know that you were accepted into Night-Eye's agency internship program. What else happened? Izuku frowns. There was a second part of the interview? I guess it was put in place for if someone didn't make him laugh, or, I don't know, maybe he came up with it on the spot just for me. It was more physical, I guess. Physical, Shota repeats, eyes narrowing. Physical how? I had to take something from him. Using my quirk. He doesn't like my quirk. Or he doesn't like that I have the quirk. Very much, so he wanted to see me use it. I failed that one too. I don't know how I was supposed to take it from him. He knew what I was going to do. It wasn't very fair. I really tried. He used his quirk on you. Shota didn't ask, he says, and it's not a question, a statement. He knows, and if by the fact that there's an angry flicker of red in his gaze, he's mad about it. He wanted you to take something from him, but he knew exactly what you'd do in the specified time frame as well. He could predict everything because he knew what would happen. Izuku nods sadly. Yeah, I guess. That's unacceptable. Izuku jerks his head up, and his mouth is agape as Shota fumes. His features have darkened, and even his tone is dry and annoyed. His eyes are sharp, but Izuku knows nothing in the man's anger is directed at him. That's so obviously rigged, completely rigged. How did he expect you to do anything other than what he predicted? If he used foresight, you wouldn't stand a chance of taking something from him, and that has nothing to do with your skill level and how far you've come. It's simply a fact. You would have been able and ready to counter anything you threw at him. Shota stares exasperated at the wall behind Izuku, just over Izuku's head. That's unacceptable. The man repeats, like he just can't believe what's being said, his tone sour. He gave you not one, but 2 illogical tests to determine your worth as a hero. 2 tests that have nothing to do with heroics and what the school has been teaching and training you for. I don't mind, Izuku whispers, playing with his own fingers. I just thought it was a bit unfair. I mind, his guardian huffs. And it was. Sir Night-Eye has the right to run his agency however he sees fit, but that doesn't mean that Yuuei has to include Night-Eye agency in their program. Rejection is a part of heroics, just like any profession, but being rejected because you can't make someone laugh, because you can't outsmart your own future that's being viewed and used against you, that's not something I want to send my students into. No! Izuku yelps, staring wide-eyed. You can't. Togata-senpai's happy at Night-Eye's agency. He's learning loads, and he's comfortable with the sidekicks and the staff, and Sir Night-Eye's a great mentor for him. And I want to learn from Sir and his sidekicks too. It's just me he doesn't like, Shota. Which is part of the problem in and of itself, The man cuts him off sharply. That was mistreatment, Izuku. He gave you an irrational test, and when you didn't pass that one, he gave you a rigged test that you wouldn't pass no matter how good or clever you were. He set you up for failure. But I passed, Izuku reminds softly. You did, Shota agrees. But if what you're telling me is right, you didn't make him laugh, and you didn't manage to take the item from him, so how did you pass? Izuku's quiet. He isn't really sure, honestly. He'd thought that he failed. He really had. He hadn't managed to pass either of Sir Night-Eye's tests, and the man wasn't exactly nice, and Izuku had been overwhelmed, and then he just passed, somehow. I don't know. That's not teaching. Shota shakes his head. He didn't tell you why you failed, or why you passed. Did he tell you that you did anything right in the time that you were at the agency with him? Was it all negative? It's starting to sound to me like he had no intention of ever letting you into that program. It sounds like he was biased against you from the moment you even took the first test. And if it was like that on the first day, I can't see it getting any better, kiddo. Izuku's silence is answer enough to the man's questions. Shota's shoulders, they slump as he blows out a long sigh, and Izuku can't meet his eyes. I can't approve this, Izuku. Shota tells him quietly, I can't sign off on sending you to a place where I know you won't be treated fairly. This has nothing to do with the fact that you are my foster son. I'd be having this talk with any student in your position. I don't want any of you in environments that are harmful, either physically or emotionally like this appears to be. If I sign off on this, it could very well be detrimental to your learning and your growth as a hero. I have no say in what Sir Night-Eye does in his agency, how he hires sidekicks and interns, but I sure as hell have the right to protect my students from a toxic environment. I'm sorry, but I can't let you intern there. But I made it into the program, Izuku argues. I passed his test. He wanted me to fail, but I somehow passed. I can't just give up. I worked so hard. Shota, please, you can't. I can. The man sighs, and Izuku's jaw snaps shut. I know you don't like it, but Night-Eye's agency isn't the right fit for you. I don't believe it will be a safe place for you to personally learn, and I refuse to send my students off to an agency where they'll be treated unfairly. Toxic working environments are draining, Izuku. You don't want to be somewhere where everything you do is wrong. But I want to learn at Night-Eye's agency. Izuku bows his head, voice nothing but a whisper. I was excited to patrol that area, and to work with him and learn from Togata-senpai. I know he can teach me a lot. He was excited to work with me, and the deadline for internships already passed. I can't just find another one. I don't want to fall behind again. Shota, I was just finally catching up to everyone else. Don't make me skip the internships. Hey, calm down a bit. Take a breath, Izuku. Izuku does, sucking in a gulp of air. He hadn't realized that his voice was getting steadily louder as he panicked. I'm not making you skip the internships. I'm aware the deadline has already passed, but that doesn't mean there's no options. Izuku sucks in a couple more breaths, trying to slow down the panic. He knows this is a conversation. Shota's making it into a conversation instead of being all one-sided, but he still can't help but feel like he isn't being heard. And he gets it. Shota, it's his job to protect them, and he can't lie and say that he hasn't been worried about unfair treatment from Sir either, but it also doesn't feel fair that he has an internship position at Night-Eye's agency that he isn't allowed to take. He passed every test and jumped through the hoops, and he worked hard to impress Sir Night-Eye, and he somehow managed to do it. It just doesn't feel fair that all this effort is going to waste, and he's getting vetoed. Talk to me, problem child. Shota calls his attention back. He looks so calm still, so ready to hear Izuku out. I want to understand. You know that he isn't particularly fond of you, but you still want to intern there. Take me through it. I think I can learn a lot. Izuku croaks out. He doesn't know why he's so upset. He knows Shota's only trying to keep him safe, and he doesn't doubt that the man would take the same actions he is now if it was Uraraka or Kaminari or Sato in this position. He knows Sir Night-Eye isn't in favor of him being the next wielder of One for All, but the man still knows about it. He's watched All Might work with it for years, the only sidekick the man ever took on, and Sir had been subtly training Togata to inherit the quirk, so he must have had some information or tricks or even just helpful advice for Izuku. He can't pass it up. Any help he can get, he needs. What can you learn with Sir Night-Eye that you can't learn anywhere else? Izuku shrugs without a word, glaring down at his knees. He let his arms fall from where they'd been wrapped around them, and at some point he let his thighs settle on the desktop. Legs hanging over the edge, he laces his fingers together and sets them in his lap like a scolded schoolboy. Shota lets the conversation lapse for a moment when Izuku doesn't verbally respond. You do understand why we're having this conversation, right? Izuku nods slowly, looking up at his guardian briefly before dropping his gaze back to his lap. He hears Shota sigh again, listens to the man as he shifts, and then hears Oboro squeak out. When he lifts his gaze, it's Shota sitting on Shoji's desktop, now with Oboro standing behind him with a glare of annoyance. The ghost had his arms crossed over his chest, eyes narrowed. It's clear that the ghost had thrown himself backward off the desk to avoid interacting with Shota. How about we make a deal? Izuku freezes, turning the words over in his head before lifting his attention to his guardian slowly. What kind of deal? Shota's quiet for a long second, and Izuku waits silently for the man to explain. I can't sign off on a full-time internship, not when I don't trust that you'll be treated fairly. You should be somewhere that I know you'll get fair treatment, and that's non-negotiable. But you're right that you worked hard to get this internship position, and you obviously want to intern at Night Eye's agency for whatever reason. I think we can compromise. Compromise? Izuku blinks owlishly. How? I'll talk to Nezu about a split internship. A what? Izuku cocks his head to the side, watching his guardian and the ghost. Oboro's shoulders have lost the tension from almost being phased through, and he's now watching Shota in interest. Izuku's never heard of a split internship before. Internships at Yuuei aren't as clear as they seem. Not as clear-cut, at least. Shota offers patiently, eyeing Izuku thoughtfully. Most of you have a clear idea on what you want to be. Limelight, Underground, Rescue. And you're all choosing heroes and agencies under each specific category depending on what kind of hero you want to be. Ideally, that's how the program runs, but there's instances where students don't know exactly their place in the heroic system. We try to encourage students to pick one, but logically, that's not always an option. We've had students occasionally take on a few different internships, breaking their time up between the agencies and heroes. Your first year is the year that you'll really grow into the kind of hero you want to be. There's nothing wrong with not knowing where you fall on the scale of things and wanting to try different paths before things get harder and more finalized in the second and third years. We could have done 2 internships? Izuku blinks. You never mentioned that. Like I said, it's not ideal. Shota shrugs, leaning forward on his elbows, and they're on his thighs, and his hands are laced together, hanging between his knees. It isn't even something that I can make a decision on my own. I'll need approval from Nezu, and it really is a lot of additional work on my end and your end. I'll need to get in touch with any and all agencies you're interning at as well, and they need to approve it too. This program is a learning experience, but a lot of agencies are relying on having interns around. So if I do this split internship, I can intern at Night Eye's agency? Partially. Shota hesitates before nodding. This is important to you, so we'll find a way. I'll speak with Sir Night Eye, or a representative from his agency, and sort out the details. I just want you to know that the only reason I'm considering this is because I know how Sasaki runs his internship program. He's not as personally involved as other agencies are, so it's likely you won't be working with him as much as you would be at other interns at the agency and sidekicks. If you're going to be interning at Night Eye's agency, even just part-time, I still want you sticking close to Tokuda. I trust that he'll watch your back if something should arise with Night Eye, just like he did during the interview. If I can't be there, I want someone I trust to make sure that you're not being singled out or mistreated. Sasaki's internship program is, more or less, interns teaching interns, so you'll most likely be shadowing Tokuda. I'd like to limit your interactions with him, but I know that's unreasonable, so try to stay around Tokuda. Shota's quiet for a second, studying Izuku. He blows out a breath, frowning apologetically. I'm afraid this is the best I can offer you. Limiting your interactions and ensuring at least one agency is teaching you properly and unbiased, while still allowing you to patrol and learn with Tokuda. Sound good? That sounds amazing, Izuku breathes out. But will Nezu-sensei agree to that? And where else will I intern? I mean, the deadline is passed. I doubt anyone will want to take me now. I doubt that Nezu will be a problem. Shota shrugs, finally pushing himself up from the desktop. He stretches out his back and he rakes his fingers through his hair. As for your other internship, I'm sure a teacher at the school wouldn't mind having you shadow part-time, and worst comes to worst, you can check out my agency and see how Underground Heroics works. That, though, will clash with your daily schedule, so I'd like that to be a last resort. I don't want your sleep schedule to end up as shitty as mine. Izuku snickers at his guardian's drawl, and Shota even ends up quirking an amused smile, too. Anyways, that sound good? Sounds amazing, Izuku tells him with a thankful nod. Much to Izuku's surprise, Nezu-sensei is quick to agree to a split internship, Shota's reporting back that they'd gotten the principal's stamp of approval only an hour or so after he leaves for the meeting. Izuku's relieved. When they have the approval to continue forward with their split internship, Shota urges Izuku to decide on another agency or pro to work under, since at this point they're past the deadline for interviews, and the internships will be starting the following day. It's very last minute, but Shota assures him that it won't be a problem. Shota can't make any further arrangements without having that second agency selected, so Izuku really has to pick someone and hope that they don't mind him asking for an interview so late. He doesn't think that many of the teachers will mind, but he still feels bad. After some thought, and some convincing from Moburo, Izuku decides to ask Hisashi if he can intern with him for the remainder of the time. It's not just that Hisashi's his guardian. In fact, Hisashi being his guardian is part of the reason why he's hesitant to even ask. He doesn't want any favoritism, even though he knows Hisashi would never. He's always loved Present Mike. He listened diligently every week to the man's radio show growing up, and Izuku had always thought the voice was an interesting quirk. Voice was an intricate quirk, one that had probably taken years to figure out. Izuku honestly can't imagine a baby or a toddler having something as powerful as voice before they even really know what a quirk is, and the potential dangers that come with them. Having your quirk be something like your voice is difficult considering how much one actually speaks in day-to-day life, and it's not just speaking, it's noises, sounds, any vocal noise that comes from his larynx is directly affected by his quirk, not to mention how much damage voice could do if Hisashi wasn't as good with quirk control as he is. Hisashi's able to do so much with his quirk, and it's amazing. He knows his guardian can teach him about quirk control. Something like voice is hard to control, and One for All is also hard to control. So maybe if Sir Night-Eye can't offer anything useful, Hisashi can? It's the most logical decision when it comes to choosing a secondary internship with one of the teachers. All of his teachers are great, really, and he'd love to intern with any of them, but none of them have a quirk quite as complicated as One for All. Hisashi's the closest that comes to it, and he knows, if all else fails, Hisashi will be able to give him some useful pointers even if he doesn't know the secret of One for All. Plus, Hisashi's such a great hero. He's a staple, really. Not charting by any means, but he's a household name that focuses more on the civilians than popularity polls. He does a lot of good as a hero, and as a radio host. Put Your Hands Up Radio does so much charity work, and events that raise money for important causes. Hisashi's always involved. He's positive and kind, and Izuku wants to be a hero like that someday. At this rate, he wants to be a perfect mix of All Might, Present Mike, and Eraserhead. A smile like All Might, no matter what the situation is he's facing. Something civilians and victims can rely on. He wants to be kind and upbeat like Present Mike, a friendly face that people will know will help no matter what. And he wants to be calm and shrewd like Eraserhead, logical and to the point, getting the job done while also making people feel safe. He doesn't know what that says about him. It's a secret, though, that he'll take to the grave. Hisashi, much to Izuku's surprise, actually takes the request very seriously. Not that he didn't think his guardian wouldn't take the request seriously, just he'd been a little worried Hisashi would accept him as his intern just because Izuku's his foster kid. That fear, however, is very far from what really happens, though. The man takes the paperwork Izuku offers with a nervous hand and reads through everything as they sit at the kitchen table together. He asks questions, the type that Izuku had been expecting Sir Night-Eye to ask, and they do a quick interview in the kitchen while Shota makes them all tea. This is more of an interview, at home with his guardians, than he'd gotten with Sir Night-Eye while actually in an official interview. He tries not to dwell on that difference in professionalism. By the time Izuku leaves the upstairs apartment, he has another stamp of approval, a second internship position, and Shota has promised to work on arranging the split internship. The man assures him that he'll be able to get everything arranged by the following morning, considering the other internship advisor is sitting at his side, waiting to help organize everything. When everything is said and done with the organization of the split internship, Izuku couldn't be more pleased with what his homeroom teacher had managed to pull together in such a short time frame. He'd been granted permission to intern with Night-Eye's agency on the 3 days a week that Togeda has morning individual patrol. Togeda will be his agency mentor, even if technically Bubble Girl is their mentor, followed by a chain of command that leads to Sir Night-Eye at the top, who oversees everything. Still, Izuku will be patrolling and largely learning from his upperclassmen. When he's not at Night-Eye's agency, he'll be shadowing and working with Hisashi. Izuku's sure that this is where he'll learn how agencies actually run, since Togeda-senpai is also an intern and won't have as much power over what he teaches and shows Izuku on those 3 days that they work together. Izuku isn't sure how much Sir Night-Eye will even see him or let him in on, considering he doesn't like him very much. He also doesn't know what the man will think about Izuku requesting a split internship. He tries not to think about that, though. Hisashi's schedule isn't just about patrols, though Izuku is sure that he'll go on a couple during the internship too. There are events, both relating to his hero-hosted radio show as well as his actual hero career. Being a household name means that he's pretty much publicized, and there's bound to be more that Izuku needs to know. He knows that Hisashi's busy between 3 jobs, and he knows all 3 tend to bleed into each other, so he's stoked to see how everything falls into place. Izashi doesn't own his agency like Sir Night-Eye does. He started off as a sidekick and had eventually been partnered in with a handful of other heroes. Izuku had never really thought of heroes getting promotions within agencies, interns becoming sidekicks and sidekicks becoming heroes. Izuku is honestly curious to see what that means in terms of how the agency runs and operates. The following day, Izuku's first official day of interning, Shota drives Izuku and Togeda to Night-Eye's agency. Izuku isn't quite sure why his teacher chooses to bring them in, when he'd already made sure that the rest of Izuku's entire class knows the public transportation schedules that'll be getting them to and from their internships. Izuku knows that he knows his own as well, and he's surprised to find Shota waiting in the common area of the dorms, dressed in his hero costume. Togeda doesn't seem fazed when he strolls into the 1A dorms to see Shota ready to tag along with them. The older boy just shoots a wide smile between his kohai and his sensei, accepting the offer of a ride easily. Shota and Izuku explain the details of Izuku's split internship to the upperclassmen, and Togeda seems interested in it, even if he seems to agree that it's a good call for Izuku. Shota doesn't hide his frown very well. Yeah, sir's not usually like that, Togeda had sighed from the passenger seat of the car. I think you caught him on an off day. Not that that's any excuse for how he treated you. It still wasn't very cool of him. I don't think I've ever seen him act like that. It was weird. Anyways, you're my kohai, Midoriya, and I'd be pretty awful of a hero if I wasn't looking out for you as well, so I'll totally watch your back, and I know you'll watch mine. We'll be great partners, yeah? And I'm glad that you decided to intern at Night-Eye's agency still, even if it's only part-time. The first day of internships is really just orientation. Izuku meets other interns, some students from other schools, and some just low-ranking heroes trying out different agencies. He meets sidekicks, too, and gets to change into his costume. Shota had disappeared when they'd first arrived, and Izuku later sees him coming out of Sir Night-Eye's office with a sour-looking expression. Annoyance is clear in the man's body language, but Izuku thinks better of going off and talking to his guardian, especially when Sir Night-Eye leaves his office looking equally as annoyed. Shota leaves after that, slipping out the doors with nothing more than a half-hearted wave in Izuku's direction when the man notices him watching. He's gone before Izuku can even think to offer his own wave in return. He wonders what Shota and Sir Night-Eye were talking about. Probably nothing good if they both look so peeved. His first day at Night-Eye's agency goes better than he'd anticipated. Sir Night-Eye is nice enough when he does end up talking to Izuku and Togeda about the patrol route that they'll end up taking. It's Togeda's original patrol route from his own first-year internship program that they're assigned to. It's nice to know that Togeda will know what he's doing, and Izuku will hopefully manage to keep up with him. He really thinks that Togeda is the best partner that he could have here. Patrol with Togeda-senpai is the first time he meets her, that little girl who shook his very existence to the core. Patrol had started off easy enough. Togeda-senpai had been excited and enthusiastic to be teaching Izuku. Sir Night-Eye and Bubble Girl were both very busy scoping out their newest target, a villain by the name Chisaki Kai, a Yakuza leader. They'd attended the briefing just that morning before patrol, but Togeda hadn't been sure if they'd be allowed to help with the case when surveillance was complete and Sir Night-Eye was ready to launch his raid. Izuku knows interns are generally left out of the sensitive and dangerous cases, especially student interns. Still, they'd been included in the briefing, and it sounds like it would be a good raid learning experience. He's glad that he's getting to branch out in different aspects of heroics, patrols, raids, office work. Heroics is more than just swooping in to save the day, and it's nice that they're letting the students experience that. Izuku hopes Sir Night-Eye can put the grudge he has against Izuku behind them, so it doesn't affect Izuku's growth. Benching them from an important mission within the agency just because he's upset with Izuku that he has one for all instead of Togeda would be awful. Izuku likes to think Sir Night-Eye would never, but, well, he doesn't really know anymore. Still, even if they're not part of the Shie Hisaikai case, this is a pretty good introduction to patrolling. It had started off way better than his first patrol with Gran Torino. Or, that's what he thought, at least. It's not every day that a small child rushes you from a dark, dead-end alley. That said, it's not exactly strange either. Izuku doesn't think any hero can say that they've never helped a lost child before. Small children are notorious for slipping away from their parents. All it takes is a second for a child to get distracted and wander off. Izuku knows he used to get completely distracted by hero merch stores whenever he went to the mall with his mother when he was little. He knows he also used to trail after ghosts, which is a habit he's yet to really kick. It makes it worse, considering Izuku could hardly tell the difference between alive people and ghosts when he was little, so he was essentially following after strangers. It's a miracle that he'd never gotten kidnapped or something. He's gotten better at that, though. Even if he still sucks at telling the difference between ghosts and living people, his awareness has improved over the years, and as it turns out, ghosts tailing him is more so the problem now. Still, it was easy for children to slip away and get lost in the crowd. It was just as easy for children to slip out of their own doors if they're not being watched. At first, that's exactly what Izuku suspects this is. Izuku's not paying attention, so when the small force barrels into him, he's thrown off guard. The child, a little girl with long silvery blue hair and worried red eyes, is what he finds when he rights his own footing before he topples over and glances sideways. She's dressed in a dress, or maybe rags? He's not quite sure. They're not in the best part of town, and homelessness is a very real problem. The little girl hadn't been as lucky, the force of bumping into her sending her to her hands and knees. So she's small. He doesn't interact with kids much, not that he doesn't like them. She looks fragile, though, just because she's so tiny. Sorry. Izuku makes sure to smile kindly and keep his voice upbeat and calming. She's still on the ground, so he reaches a hand down to help her as he continues. That must have hurt. And she flinches away. Izuku freezes. He feels Oboro over his shoulder, and he knows Togata-senpai's watching him from just a couple steps over. Izuku crouches down so he's on the same level as the child, close enough to help her up when she's ready. Izuku? He hears the ghost behind him mutter his name quietly, almost confused and cautious. But Izuku's focus is on the little girl. She trembles, even as he lowers his hand back to his lap. He doesn't want to cause her any more fear. The way that she'd flinched from him repeats in his head, and he can't help but wonder what he did wrong. She's trembling. She'd flinched. She's scared. The realization stuns him, but he tries not to let it interfere with how he handles this. He lets his gaze survey the little girl, eyes flicking from her face down to her arms, then down to her legs. Her limbs are wrapped in bandages entirely. What had happened to her? Is she hurt? Had she gotten even more hurt when she'd fallen? Izuku. Oboro calls a second time, yet this time his tone is serious in a way that Izuku rarely hears. It's serious enough that he glances over his shoulder, seeing the ghost staring wide-eyed down the alley. Izuku sweeps his attention in the same direction, breath catching in his lungs when he sees it. It's the little girl. But it's not. It's not just one, either. There's at least four small children trailing after the one in front of Izuku. Izuku blinks as he takes in the scene, then drops his gaze back to the child in front of him as she... No, she can't be a ghost. Togata's watching the interaction between Izuku and the small girl, so she must be real, but who are they? Help! The little girl closest to the one he's kneeled beside says softly. Her head is bowed. Ruby red eyes he'd seen as she approached, directed toward the ground in a movement that's so submissive it makes Izuku's stomach churn. Help her! Oboro sucks in a breath as Izuku feels himself drown in his own. He looks past the little girl who'd spoken to the three others behind her. They're not real, not alive, he can tell. They flicker in a way he's never seen a ghost, and as he stares he notices something else. They're all in various stages of fading. The ghost who'd spoken is the clearest, no different than Oboro behind Izuku. She's clear and hesitant, eyes flicking between Izuku and the living child who looks just like them. 5 identical children. The one next is faded enough for Izuku to notice, and the one after her even more so. The pattern continues until his gaze catches on the last little girl, movements echoey like she can't keep up and nearly is entirely faded. You can see us. The ghost closest to them accuses, eyes dark with fear. Please, help her, you have to. The second ghost steps closer to the first, settling beside her. They're nearly identical, or they would be if they weren't for the fading of the second ghost. Their expressions match to a T, and Izuku feels dread pulling in his stomach. Despite his confusion, he knows there's something not right about this. He can sense the danger here, and he can't seem to stop his hand from twitching. The subconscious jerk of grabbing the child and running, the only thing that he can really think about. He knows he can't do that, as much as he wants to. Save her. The second ghost pleads, hand reaching out as if to grab Izuku. She stills before pulling her hands back, fingers interlacing together and settling against her front. Save us. He's coming. The third ghost calls, voice staticky and echoing in a way that almost makes his ears ring. She's so faded it hurts his heart. He's never seen ghosts fade, didn't know it could happen, but he doesn't think that there's anything about this that's normal. The fourth ghost twitches like a lagging television screen, limbs flickering out of existence as she moves to join the others, where they'd slowly built a half-circle around Izuku and the child. She moves slow, a weakness that he's never seen in a ghost. She opens her mouth to speak, but nothing comes out, not a sound. He thinks that she's talking, but he hears nothing. She closes her mouth when she comes to the same conclusion, glancing around at the other ghosts before an expression of hurt and devastation crossing her small features. Izuku wants to reach out and hug her, but knows better than to. What is this? What's happening right now? Why are there so many of the same child? Multiple ghosts of the same little girl. How is she alive, but not? She'll be gone soon, the second ghost whispers when she notices Izuku's eyes jerking over at the last ghost. Her tone is sad, soft but accepting. We all will. We always fade. Help her, the first ghost says again. She's obviously the strongest of the bunch, voice clear and resignation in her tone. The demand is soft, coming from a child but still stern. Izuku, what? I'm sorry, Izuku tells the child, focusing back on the living little girl. He feels bad about cutting Oboro off, but he can only focus on one thing at a time, and this child is it. Here, let me help you up. He slips his hands under her arms and goes to lift her, but pauses as her body tenses. He opens his mouth to console her, the rest of the children falling worryingly silent. Izuku tries not to be worried, focusing back on the living little girl, but someone else beats him to speaking. You should be more careful. The voice startles him, as does how all the other girls seem to tense, like the voice is dangerous. Izuku's attention jerks up. He has half a mind to usher all the little girls behind him, and Oboro seems to have the same idea as he's suddenly in front of the little girls, between them and the voice slowly getting closer. The man strolls closer. You don't want to go around causing trouble for heroes. The little girl, the living one, trembles harder as she inches closer to Izuku. She doesn't reach for him, but she's close enough that she could. She looks like she wants to, but doesn't. Help, please. The first ghost's voice drops desperately, cowering away from the man, the villain. That's the man that Sir Night-Eye's investigating. That's the target. They stumbled upon Sir Night-Eye's target. Crap, this is bad. Izuku, Oboro calls again, uncertain. That's Overhaul. What do we do? The child is still on the ground, and he's still kneeled next to her. It would be so easy to snatch her and run, but there's so much he doesn't know. The man who's talking settles unknowingly beside Oboro. The ghost snarls, arm out like he'll be able to stop a living person from getting closer. Izuku grits his teeth, eyeing the man cautiously. There's something about him that makes Izuku uncomfortable, and it's not just the fact that his presence makes the girls, not just the ghost, tremble with fear. He'd almost look normal, but there's really something dark about him. Even if Izuku didn't know that this man was Chisaki, there's something about him that makes Izuku wary. I'm hoping you'll forgive my daughter, hero. Chisaki draws uninterestedly. The lack of any emotion is another red flag, not to mention how the girl winces lightly as he speaks. The ghosts have all clustered together behind Oboro, watching Izuku intently like they're waiting for him to react. He doesn't know how to. He doesn't know what to do. Almost as if he can read Izuku's thoughts, Chisaki offers a smile behind the mask that's so natural it can't be real. He's too calm, considering a child wrapped in bandages had just flinched away from a hero. She's always playing around, he says easily, tone light, in a way that he's an exasperated father, fretting over his child. It doesn't feel right. This is a villain. Izuku tenses to grab a hold of the little girl and get her far away. Always bumping into things, getting hurt. She's a bit clumsy. Izuku can't help but notice that he's already excusing the bandages that the girl is wearing. Izuku feels his mask being pulled down over his face before he can point out that then Togeda is talking about it, good-naturedly, muttering about something getting resized. But before Izuku can mutter a thing, his upperclassman's attention is back on Chisaki. So sorry about that. Izuku jerks his attention back toward Togeda-senpai. The older boy rubs at the back of his neck with an apologetic smile. What is he doing? Is he not seeing what Izuku's seeing? Does he not realize who it is they're talking to, the danger here? Even if he can't see the ghosts of this little girl too, he should see how she's reacting. They know who this man is. We're sorry, too, for bumping into her. It takes a second for Izuku to realize Togeda is doing damage control. He has to have realized, too. De-escalating the situation. Something must have shown on Izuku's face, and the last thing they need is this villain, reading into his expression. Togeda's still talking, but he's really not saying anything much. He's chatting the villain up and being completely natural, casually inquiring about the man without making it obvious. Izuku still has a lot to learn. Where Izuku's first instinct is to run, Togeda's is to appease and deflect. Chisaki doesn't appear to be on to them, and if he is, nothing shows in his expression. Don't mind the mask, Chisaki says casually. It keeps out the filth. I don't remember seeing you two heroes before. The curiosity in them curls on Izuku's stomach. It's not good. Ah, right! Tokuda gives a sheepish laugh, eyes looking to where Izuku's still on the ground with the child. Izuku doesn't know what he reads in Tokuda's expression. We're still pretty new. You probably could have guessed that, though. Well, on your feet, partner. Can't do much heroing from the ground. It feels like Tokuda's words go in one ear and out the other. Izuku can't push himself up. He doesn't want to. He doesn't like how the man's interest has strayed from his supposed child and onto them. He's barely batted an eye at the little girl, or Izuku, attention on Tokuda instead. His attention's too sharp to just be curious. It makes Izuku's stomach tighten with nerves. He knows this is something far bigger than he's first suspected it was, even bigger than Sir Night-Eye suspected. I see. The man hums thoughtfully, and something in it has Izuku's blood freezing in his veins. The ghosts are all silent, even Oboro, who's watching through narrowed eyes. And what agency do you belong to? Oh! Tokuda smiles in return, looking a bit thrown off, too. Well, we're just students. We're still so new, so it would be presumptuous to identify with an agency. We're just using our internships to get some experience. Oh, speaking of which, we're supposed to be finishing patrol this division by lunch. Let's go. Izuku can't believe his ears. They're leaving? Just like that. They're leaving this little girl to the villain. What? It doesn't feel right. He can't just look out into the sea of the same little face, the little ghost faces, and leave. They need help. This living child needs help. Please, the second ghost whines. You can save us. Izuku curls his fingers into the fabric of her dress, fingers tightening as he bites his lip. Izuku, Oboro whispers, you need to follow his lead. Izuku wants to whip around to face the ghost. How can Oboro say that? How can they just leave? Oboro is seeing exactly what Izuku is. How can he say to walk away? These ghosts shouldn't be here. Not if this little girl is still living, and there shouldn't be multiple. How can Oboro ignore the pleas of these little girls? He's Sir Night-Eye's target, the ghost says stiffly, like the words taste wrong. Night-Eye's an asshole, but he's still a good hero. You can't risk giving everything away, man. You can't make it worse right now. This guy's dangerous. Follow Tokuda, report back to Night-Eye. He can help her. Don't do anything stupid. Right, Izuku says after mulling it over for no longer than half a second. He hesitates from pushing himself up. He's responding to Oboro, but it also passes as a reply to Tokuda, too. When he finally does pull away from the girl, he freezes, with small hands entangled with his costume, a small, tiny voice just barely loud enough for him to hear. Please don't go. It's the same voice that he'd been hearing since spotting the little girl and her multitude of ghosts. They really are all the same, all the ghosts almost like echoes of this child. It's the exact same childlike plea that the ghost had been begging for help with. He can't. He doesn't know how Tokuda's doing it. He can't leave this child. He doesn't know what Chisuke's doing to her, but it's something bad. It's something awful. How is he supposed to ignore a distraught child? Distraught ghost children? They know this man is so bad, so why aren't they saving her? Excuse me, I'm sorry, but Izuku breathes out, hoping his voice stays level. Oboro winces, so Izuku assumes he hadn't quite managed it. Crap. Your daughter seems scared. The man's expression tightens, and Izuku feels like he's messed up. Oboro sucks in a breath, shifting a bit more so that the ghost children can't see him. They're still cowering, desperate eyes on Izuku. A reaction to being scolded. Chisuke insists, his voice clipped. Izuku feels Tokuda's eyes on him now, and he can't help but feel like they're disapproving. Izuku. Oboro glances at him. You're making him suspicious. You need to let her go. We can't save her. Not on our own. I know it feels wrong, but we can't do this alone. Sure, Tokuda agrees, lightly, smile wide. Izuku tries to pull away without really trying. He doesn't use force, and he doesn't dare touch the trembling child. She's still clutching at him, all her strength hanging onto his costume. He feels her crying, and his heart shatters. He can't leave her. He can't, but he has to. Oboro's right. They don't know what they're up against. Sir Night-Eye is investigating Chisuke. There'll be teams in the raid. They're powerful. One for all is powerful, but he can't throw himself into a fight right now. Not when there's a chance this little girl will end up in the middle of it. Izuku doesn't really remember what he says. He's running on panic and adrenaline, making excuses that are shot down. Tokuda is casually stiff behind him, and Oboro is gnawing at his bottom lip, looking as torn up about this as Izuku feels. The conversation is in one ear and out the other, his own body speaking and reacting on autopilot. Eri, that's the name he just said, isn't it? The girl trembles, crying without making a sound. It breaks his heart. He knows Tokuda wants to leave, Oboro urging them in that direction too, but it feels wrong. He knows they probably know best, but how can they say that when it means leaving Eri in Chisuke's hands? He doesn't know what happens. One second he's clutching Eri in his hands, following Chisaki back into the alleyway. They're talking, Togeda and Chisaki mostly, while Izuku just cradles Eri to him, intent on keeping her safe. He isn't really following the conversation. He's heeding all the warnings, the ghosts and Eri's own. Togeda agreed, a silent mutual understanding. They can't leave her. That's not what a hero would do, so they trudge forward after Chisaki. Togeda is at his side, and Oboro is stepped behind him. The crowd of Eri's ghosts trail after them like ducklings, all crowded together and fearful. He hears the gasp. Eri gasping lightly, almost inaudibly, as she squirms in his arms, and the ghosts behind them gasp as well, like there was some sort of threat that no one but them understands. The ghosts are crying, quiet and terrified, while Eri tugs to be set down. He hadn't really been a part of the conversation despite weighing in. She pushes off of him urgently, squirming until he releases his grip on her enough for her to squirm her way out. She drops to the ground and runs toward Chisaki. Her little hand slips into his, and he's quick to tighten his hold on her hand like he doesn't trust her to stay by his side. Izuku doesn't understand. He doesn't get it. What just happened? The ghost Aries all take off after her, keeping distance from Chisaki but keeping Eri close too. Eri, Izuku calls, heart thrumming in his chest. She still looks so scared even as she settles at Chisaki's side, nodding when he chides her. There's fear in her eyes, and the ghosts have gone deathly quiet too. Are you sure? She's always like this, Chisaki mutters, unaware of the ghosts wincing as he speaks. They're all pleading silently, staring at Izuku with wide red eyes. He's not sure that he'll ever forget. Sorry to involve you in our family drama. I'm sure you have better things to be doing. Good luck with your internship. Izuku moves to go after them, but is stopped by Togeda's arm. Oboro also plants himself in front of Izuku, expression regretful but stern. I'm sorry, Izuku. Oboro shakes his head sadly. But you need to listen to Togeda. He knows what he's doing. There are protocols that you need to follow so you don't make this worse. This is your first patrol, but it's not his. And it's not mine either. At that, Izuku slowly angles his head up to look at his upperclassman, knowing that the ghost is right even if it feels like his heart is shattering. He'd been so focused on Eri, he hadn't even noticed Chisaki snapping. He hadn't even noticed the villain preparing to get violent. Togeda's right, this isn't a fight they're prepared for. They can't help Eri if they scare Chisaki away before they can get the chance to rescue her. Sir Night-Eye setting up an intricate domino pattern. All it takes is for Izuku to bump into one and send the whole thing tumbling down. This doesn't feel like a win at all. Izuku hesitates for a second as Togeda turns to leave the alley. He's right that they need to report back to Sir Night-Eye. Izuku's glad his upperclassman doesn't hover, trusts him not to charge into a fight he's ill-prepared for. As much as he wants to. He squeezes his hands into fists, eyes following suit when he can no longer see Chisaki or Eri through the darkness of the alley. He sucks in a breath, trying to calm himself down. Gives him a second to breathe, and to look around because he and his ghost aren't alone. Izuku hadn't noticed the first ghost child, and the clearest one, that was hiding behind Oboro. He'd been too focused on watching Eri return to her captor to really think about counting the ghosts, and Oboro hadn't noticed either, jumping when he finally spots his small shadow. The little girl is curled in on herself where she stands, staring up between both of them with wide, pleading eyes. One hand clutches at the hem of her dress, while her other squeezes at her locked elbow. She looks scared, eyes darting back in the direction that Chisaki had taken the living Eri. Please help us, she pleads again, voice soft, as she glances back down the alley a second time, nervously. She twitches like she needs to follow after them, but doesn't move now that she has Izuku's attention. He hurts us. He makes us. Please help. Please help, Hero. She's so scared. We're so scared. Izuku swallows, nodding. He kneels down so that he's at her level, knowing Togeda's probably waiting for him now. He needs to hurry before his senpai comes looking for him. We will, Eri-chan. Please hold on, okay? The heroes are working on helping you. You just need to wait a little bit longer, all right? The ghost offers a tiny, scared smile. She'll try. Please hurry. Izuku watches the little ghost child turn away, running to catch up with Eri and the others. His heart hurts. We'll rescue her, Izuku. Oboro sets a hand on Izuku's shoulder, giving a comforting squeeze before letting the contact fall. We'll help them. We just can't do it alone. There's no I in team, so when you start thinking there is, that's when heroes wind up dead. Yeah, Izuku swallows. We'll help them. All of them.
All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 38 of Yuuei Survival Guide. Chapter 39 will be next. Hope y'all are still enjoying. And as always, thank you so much for listening.